Escaped Sapiens.
What does the journey look like from coming forward and answering the advert to being on the operating table? Does that journey take a long time? Are there checks done for patient diseases or any complications that might arise? How does it look to them on the again, the seller end?
Well, we're just only now learning about the different phases of the organ trade, and what we're learning is that it has many different facets that you can see. It raises a lot, that it takes place along a spectrum of different types of forms of organ trade, involving very organized forms, transnational, global forms of recruitment and travel and so forth. But we also know that there are smaller forms of organ trade involving only two, maybe three individuals that take place very locally. So it's important to make this remark that not all forms of organ trade can be put under one label or under one header. But we do know that the more organized forms of organ trading involving criminal networks that collaborate on a transnational basis, that they prefer conducting living donor kidney transplantations, meaning that they indeed recruit donors and recipients, the recipients being the patients who buy, and then enabling them to travel, usually to a third country. So there would be the country where the donor comes from, the country where the recipient comes from, and then the country where the illegal transplantation actually takes place. And that normally would take place on the same day. So first you have the donor nephrectomy, where you remove the kidney from the donor and then immediately transplant it into the recipient, which is really not that different from how a legal living donor kidney transplantation takes place. Locally, nationally, within countries.
But so, if I understand right, the majority that you know about it happening in real hospitals with real surgeons who are qualified. Is it always with surgeons that are qualified to do those surgeries, or is it also being done sort of in hospitals by? I guess what I'm curious about is from the picture I have when you talk about these cases with large networks which involve multiple countries and potentially very powerful people, or maybe even the higher ups in the hospital staff. I sort of wonder how these networks start, whether they start off with a doctor who just has sort of the idea of making a bit more money, or is it organized crime that then ropes in doctors? What's the picture there? Do you know?
It's quite difficult to research the embeddedness within the medical sector and the motivations of why doctors are doing this. We're still trying to actually, reach out to doctors to see if they are willing to speak to us about this. But let me first say that all of the cases that have been officially reported, so official criminal cases reported by countries to organizations like the UN or the WHO, all these cases, if you look at them carefully, you will see that all illegal transplantations that were reported in those cases took place inside transplant hospitals, transplant clinics, and were performed by doctors who had the degrees, the licenses to do these transplantations. It doesn't mean that all organ trade cases happen this way. There might be cases that we don't know about that happen outside of the medical sector. But we're still trying to, find information and data on that part of the organ trade. And there's very little research on the motivations. It would seem logical and easy to presume that it's a very profit-driven industry. We know that donors receive roughly 10% of what the patient usually pays. The highest amount that we know based on research that patients have paid is roughly $200,000, and the highest amount that kidney sellers have received that we know about is roughly $20,000. So depending on the size of the network, the number of middlemen, the number of people that are in between donors and sellers, you can kind of roughly calculate how much money is left for those, not just the doctors, but also brokers and recruiters.